In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Can you hear me now? You should be able to hear me now. Oh, what a beautiful start to the show. Can you hear me? Great. Well, with that done, I'm going to try to plug my microphone back in. Can you hear me? Yay or nay? Can you hear me? Anyone? Someone? Yes. Okay. Well, who knows what happened there? So let's try this again. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a great Saturday. Sorry about the little technical difficulty there at the beginning, but you've landed at Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and create community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. So, hi, Kim, how are you? Let's welcome everybody again. We have Crystal Phoenix, who is working, and she dropped by to say hi. Tommy Stiggs dropped by to say hi. So thank you very much. Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. And in the chat, we have Carmel, Janet, Crystal M, and Kim. Thank you all for being here. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, today we have a big show, one that I've been waiting to cover, and it's something that I'm probably going to cover multiple times. First, before that, announcements. I am going to be on Jarrett Talks tomorrow evening. Carmel, if you could find his thumbnail and put it up. I know he has one, If you can't, let me know. I can probably dig it out. But I will be on his show tomorrow at 8 p.m. He's a smaller channel, just like us, trying to get words out. Does a lot of different interviews. And so you can check out his channel. But I will be there at 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. I think that's the only announcement, other than I'm dog sitting and house sitting for my parents while they're in Hawaii. So I may be coming to you from my father's office on Wednesday. We'll see how things go. I'll set it up, and if things aren't going well, I will probably take everything back here. So be back and forth a little bit, but that's okay. How is everyone today? I hope the weather is good for you guys. We've got sun in and out, little chillier, but about 60 degrees. It just feels colder when the sun isn't on you, doesn't it? But bystander intervention, guys. Why did I decide to cover this topic? Well, I don't know about you, but I've often thought, I've often seen, different situations where I wasn't sure if I should say something. I wasn't sure what I should say. I wasn't sure how to go about the situation. And we're going to talk about bystander intervention in specifically the realm of sexual assault, sexual harassment, domestic violence. But in terms of intervening as a bystander, this can be anytime you're noticing something that you feel is not right. And that's your own moral compass, right? To decide whether or not you feel a situation needs to be intervened in. But this can be racism, bullying, sexism, gender discrimination, any situation where you feel, hey, that's really not right and something needs to be done. Not just because of what the person is saying, but how it's affecting somebody else. And that specifically is what I'm talking about in terms of bystander intervention as a third party. So there's two other people, somebody who's being a harasser or an abuser. There's a victim in the situation. And should you step in? Should you say something? You can find it. All right. No worries. No worries. No worries. Hang on, guys. 1 second. I'm going to grab this. Ba, 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 ba. I hope everybody is having a good one. Well, isn't that interesting? I don't see his upcoming stuff. I do on the phone. Oh, here we go. I think it's because he has 2 channels. That's why. Okay. So Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. There we go. That should work. It's gray and rainy, and it makes you so happy. Deaudre, hi, first of all. Welcome. I'm so glad you're happy this afternoon. Great and rainy makes me crabby. I'm just that way. I very much, if I don't have seasonal affective disorder, I certainly am affected by the sun immensely. And it's been really rough the beginning part of April because we've been sunny and warm and then cold and blah, and then it's gone back and forth and back and forth. It's just been crappy. Hey Mayo, what's going on? So glad you joined us. I'm sorry if I'm up and down and in and out, guys. My back is absolutely killing me. One part of it, I think I slept wrong on it, and I've got a heating source on it, and it seems to be a little too hot. So I'm trying to adjust it and move around. So, this has been a start to the show, hasn't it? Dodger says, I've probably intervened once or twice in heated discussions, but never witnessed anything serious while it was actually happening. Guess I've had a pretty sheltered life. Well, maybe, maybe so. But you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Hopefully, the information that you'll gain today will stick with you. It'll be something that you can stick in your back pocket. And if you ever need it, it's there, you know. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with where we live, um, how much we're out and about in the community, how much we're going to see. Obviously, with my homebody lifestyle, I'm not out and about as much anymore, so I don't see as much. But I know when I lived in Philly, um, I would often see things, and I was real young. I was in my early 20s or late teens, and I certainly wouldn't have really been comfortable saying anything or doing anything, and I didn't know whether or not to. Hey, James, how you doing? This whole situation really came up with I want to talk about the bystander effect real quick because I think it's really important to understand. So, in March 1964 in New York, there was a woman by the name of Kitty Genovese or Genovese. I'm not sure how you pronounce her name. And she was unfortunately murdered. Now, she screamed and screamed and screamed. It was outside her apartment complex. And it was later reported that 38 people heard her screaming and yet did nothing. This is what was reported by the New York Times about 2 weeks after her murder. Now, what resulted from that, let me put a little caveat on here first. According to court transcripts, according to what actually happened, there were people who did call the police. Unfortunately, nobody got there in time. All right. But what came out of it, excuse me, there were a lot of studies done because of this New York Times article that people were just horrified. What? 38 people and nobody said anything? Not a word? Nobody bothered to intervene? And what the studies that came out of it showed is that the more people there were, the less likely someone was to intervene. Wait a minute, does that make logical sense? So the converse was true. The fewer people who witnessed an event, the more likely there was that someone would intervene. That seems to go so counterintuitive. But I guess when you think of the psychology of it, the more people there are, the easier it is for people to feel like they don't have to take personal responsibility for the situation, that somebody else will take care of it. Somebody else will call somebody else will do something. There's plenty of people around. I don't have to do anything myself. So, what additional studies later on in time have shown that the most effective way, let me back up. So, that became known as the bystander effect. The more people there were, the less likely it was that anybody was going to act. What future studies showed was that the most effective way to be able to get help, if you are in a situation where you're in a mass of people, a department store or a parking lot, or just a busy street or whatever, the most effective way to get help is by asking for help, but focusing on one person. Asking one person who's passing by, miss with the yellow jacket, so that they know specifically that you're referring to them. Can you help me? Now, that person may or may not help, but by being called out, by being identified, it showed that people are more likely to then stop and offer some form of assistance, whether it's assisting you directly or whether it is, getting somebody else nearby to say, hey, can you help with this? Hey, Shannon, how's it going? Did I miss anybody who came in? Just James. I think I already said hi to James. Hello, James. Say hi to you again. So, in recent years, the idea of bystander intervention has become, don't be a bystander, be an upstander. It's like an upstanding citizen. So be an upstander. And how can you be an upstander? What do you do? Well, I'm going to play a short video for you guys. And this video is not just related to sexual assault. Actually, I'm going to play a different one first. I'll play a short video, and I think it was very well done. And this is about a woman who's being crowded on a subway or a bus, feeling very uncomfortable. And let's see what happens. And then I'm going to get into the specifics of each of the situations that was shown. So let me present this first. Hey, Jimena, how are you doing today? One moment, I have to skip through this. I love her.
It's not okay. No, no, stop, no. No, stop, no.
Okay. Hey, Davey, how you doing? So that was just a short video to show you 5 different ways that you could intervene in a situation safely. And the 5 Ds go as called the 5 Ds: distract, delegate, document, delay, and direct. And now I want to play you a short video that just goes through these a little bit more orderly, documenting. So it tells you each one. And I found it was very, very informative. So I decided I want to play this with you. Oh, your move went well. Oh, good. I'm so glad that you're in your new place now. That was for Kamal. Hey, Cosmic, what's going on? Hope all is going well with you. All right. Let me play this, and then we are going to talk about these 5 Ds.
Being publicly harassed but had no idea how to help. At that time, you might have chosen to walk away. As a bystander, you can help prevent, derail, or discourage acts of harassment. Here are 5 tactics to effectively intervene when you spot harassment, also known as the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. Distraction is a creative, non-confrontational way to shift attention and interrupt harassment. You can ask for the time or directions. Pretend you know the person being harassed and strike up a conversation about something random. Create a commotion by spilling your coffee or dropping coins from your wallet. Turn to a third party for help. Depending on the situation, you can delegate to a friend, someone in a position of authority like teachers or security guards, or peace officers equipped to de-escalate the situation. Unless it's a medical emergency, don't contact the police and check in with the person being harassed first. Many communities, like communities of color, trans communities, and immigrant communities, may not feel safer with police presence. Recording an incident when it happens can be helpful when done safely and responsibly. There are a few things to keep in mind, such as make sure someone else is doing something to disrupt the harassment before you start filming. Maintain a safe distance from the incident. Film landmarks and clearly state the date and time. After filming, give the documentation to the person being harassed, giving them the power to decide what happens next. Sometimes harassers leave before anyone can intervene. You can still check in on the person targeted afterward. Some things that you can say are you okay? I'm so sorry that happened to you. Is there anything you need? Do you want to report this incident? Can I accompany you somewhere? Confronting the harasser is the most direct and riskiest intervention tactic. Before you step in, assess everyone's safety. If you feel safe to do so, you can confront the harasser by naming the type of harassment, stating what you observe. After you clearly set the boundary, turn your attention away from the harasser and towards the person being harassed and check in on them. Don't engage with the harasser and get into a back and forth. Whichever tactic you choose at the moment, remember that your action can be impactful. As bystanders, you hold the power to make a difference.
Okay. So what'd you guys think of that? I thought that was a cute little video that kind of put this all together. Some of the things that, hey Todd, how you doing? So let's talk about some situations. Let's talk about some potentially assaultive situations that you might be witnessing, a situation you're fearful that might result in an assault, um, whether that's a sexual assault or a physical violence type of assault. A situation where consent can't be given for whatever reason. Um, the the victim is unconscious. The victim is drunk, under obvious signs of some form of a drug, um, or any type of sexual harassment that's going on. And in regards to this, we're using sexual harassment very, very broadly. So this is going to involve inappropriate touching, groping, grinding, invasion of personal space, like we were seeing on that first video that I showed you, exposing themselves, exposing their genitals to somebody, and also public masturbation. I just included them all. So that's all within sexual harassment. Verbiage that is obviously sexual in nature, that is making somebody feel uncomfortable, falls under sexual harassment as well. Sexual harassment in general, by its definition, is any unwanted sexual conduct. Okay. So, what do? Well, before we even get into sometimes you'll see 4Ds, sometimes you'll see 5Ds. Generally, when I've seen them, the 4 versus the 5, it's the document one that's been dropped. But we're going to talk about that since we're in that day and age. But before you even get into those, you need to notice the situation, notice what's going on. So this means paying attention to your surroundings, paying attention to how other people are acting and reacting. Nothing might be said, but you might see somebody, as we did in the first video, move closer to someone, and that victim is obviously uncomfortable, obviously does not want this added attention, or somebody's invading their personal space in a way that is making them extremely uncomfortable. So first you have to notice what's going on. Secondly, you need to evaluate and decide if action is needed. Sometimes just viewing everything for a little bit, whether that's a few seconds, whether that's a minute. Sometimes the person takes care of the harasser all by themselves. Or, they get up and move to someplace else and the person doesn't follow. Hi, Joetown, how you doing? Can't stay, but just dropping in. Well, thank you very much for dropping in. I really appreciate it. So decide if you need to do something. Decide if action is actually necessary. Perhaps in that time you're viewing, the harasser actually moves on. Next, if you think something needs to be done, you really need to look at the situation and decide, if I decide to act, can I do so safely? Meaning, does the person have a weapon? Is the person being extremely overt in their behavior to where you feel if you were to intervene in any of these 4D ways, that you could be putting your own safety at risk? So that's something that you need to assess and decide. If you decide that you can safely intervene in some sort of way, then you have to decide, well, how should I? How should I intervene? What is the best course of action based on this particular situation? And so the first one we're going to talk about is distract. And I think this is an absolute great one that can work in so many different situations. Being able to go up to somebody and start talking to them as if they're a friend and try and pull them away from the conversation or the situation that they're in with the harasser, try and move them off, or at least engaging them enough that the harasser's like, hey, what's the deal? I was talking to this person, but then they kind of give up, right? And go and do something else. Asking for directions, just striking up a conversation for no reason. Um, you know, doing anything where it is taking the focus away from the harasser on the victim to you or to a different situation. You can even say to the person, hey, look at that. Look outside. Look at what's going on. Blah, 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 whatever it is. Look at the snow. It's so wonderful. Or, oh, the city sight's going by. Have you ever been there? And, just speaking. Oh, this is awesome, Carmel. Yeah, exactly. I always go to the victim and take the female's hand and pretend to be a father or an acquaintance. It works. I bet. Because now that victim is no longer alone. And that's what harassers want. We speak all the time in terms of abusers. They want the most vulnerable. If somebody's got somebody in their corner, it's not easy to pick them off. So if that person seems like they've got an ally, it's probably going to disrupt the situation enough that harasser, that abuser is going to move on. So that's absolutely fabulous, Carmel, that you do that. The second one that they talk about is delegation. And this is where you don't feel okay just interjecting yourself directly into the conversation. So you're going to look for somebody else, be that a store manager, be that the bartender, or the bouncer, or I like that they warned about the police, because in some situations that may be your best bet. But as they stated on that video, there are some populations that are very wary of the police and are not going to welcome, even as the victim, they're not going to welcome police presence. So it is a situation you'll have to decide whether or not calling 911 or 999 or 411, whatever you have in your country, is the best course of action. Sometimes just, if you have a friend, the two of you together stand a better chance of being able to disrupt the situation. You're not just that one person. Two allies for the victim often is going to be enough for that abuser to go, okay, you know what, I'm out of here. Whatever, it's not worth it. So even if you don't have a friend by, I've seen situations where you could grab another stranger. I've looked at situations before and looked at somebody else, and we're both noticing this heated exchange. And so we're both kind of looking at each other of, do we say something? Should we say something? But neither one of us on our own are comfortable doing that or unsure about what we should do. So this stuff was very educational for me. It's given me a lot more confidence to be able to say, I think I could be an upstander, that I could safely interject myself into a situation, whether it's grabbing somebody else, causing a distraction, or intervening directly somehow, I feel a lot more comfortable with it now. But look around you and assess, is there somebody else you can grab? Just a perfect stranger who's witnessing the situation. Sometimes that can be your best bet as well. Now, documenting the situation. I say this with a caveat because, as they stated in the video, that the last video that I showed you, you want to make sure that there is another person who is distracting, disrupting somehow the situation that's going on. What you don't want to do is just be filming it. I can't stand the amount of videos that I will see posted to social media where they were like, look, we witnessed this horrible thing, or we witnessed something, bad happening. And you've got so many people posting the same event to social media, and yet no one stepped in to do anything. Now, I can only hope that somebody in that crowd had called 911 or was getting somebody, and they were just documenting it in the meantime. But I thought it was really important that they said, listen, if you do document, offer that video to the victim. If it's somebody that they know, if it's a harasser who has been a constant in their life, or somebody, just somebody who's done this once before, they may need that information. That may be important to them. So offering to send it to them is extremely important. Delay talks about a situation where the person has already left. The harasser, the abuser has already left. You've delayed acting for enough time that the victim is now alone. If you see the situation, check on the victim. See if they're okay. If this person had been bothering them, do they have a safe way home? Are they comfortable? Are they okay? Do they need somebody just to stand with them for a few minutes? Can they call anybody to pick them up? If they're shaking too much, but they need an Uber, maybe you can call the Uber for them. But check on the person. And this really has to do with the amount of empathy that we can have for strangers. I think about the situation just in terms of having empathy for someone you don't know. I remember I was in Philadelphia and I was walking through the city hall, and those plastic straps that you see that go around boxes, well, there was a bin that was kind of full of them, but they were flowing out. And with the amount of people that were there, I ended up walking way too close to that bin, and my feet got tangled up in them, the stuff that was falling out. And I ended up falling down, skinned my knees, ripped my pantyhose. It was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm on my hands and knees. And when you hurt yourself, you have those first few moments of just trying to get the pain to calm down and go away so that you can actually get up. Not a single person came over and offered to help me up. And in fact, the only person who came over and said anything to me, didn't offer me a hand, just came over to me and said, you could sue for that. This is city property. And I just looked at him from my place at the ground and said, thank you. And that was it. They moved on. And so I took the next minute, collected myself, stood up, and then finished my walk to work. But that instant has never left me. And I think about that when I see people who are struggling with their bags or with a door or yeah, if they fall down, anything, I instantly I flash back to that moment and how I felt that absolutely nobody stopped to do anything for me. And that's what makes me act in a lot of situations. And this is just talking when, when somebody's by themselves and is struggling. Kamal says, if I establish trust, I bring them home. I hope you mean to their home. I mean, if there's somebody that you know and, they would be comfortable coming to your home, that would be great. But if you could accompany them home just to make sure that they get home or to work or wherever they're going, even if it's just accompanying them to a nearby shop so that they can collect themselves and figure out what they're going to be, where they're going next, is a wonderful thing. That's why, yeah, Janet, that's why I was saying their home. Yeah, their home. Good. Thank you, Kamal. Thank you for for clarifying. Jan says, in post-COVID, I'm sure many people are more hesitant to get close to somebody, especially a homeless person. And that's understandable. For me, I don't know. I guess I take the nothing a good hand washing or some hand sanitizer can't fix. I know things can be expelled. I know that you can get it from airborne, mouth to mouth sneezes, that sort of thing. Maybe I'm just a risk taker, naive that way. My Philly incident was in 1990 though, so that 91. So absolutely no excuse. Zero. Kamal says we live in a different culture over here. Yeah, I got to imagine the US from Netherlands or even Canada to Netherlands. And it depends. It depends on what's going on for you. Do you have somewhere to be? Can you spare the time? Um, can you make the time? How close do they live? I mean, if they live 20 miles away, that might be a stretch. But that's why we say there's all kinds of things that you can do to at least de-escalate the situation that you're observing. Now, direct is the last of the D's, and this is the most risky because what you don't want to do is to get into an altercation yourself with the harasser/abuser. And you also don't want to get into a back and forth with them. The goal is to be able to move the victim away from the abuser, from the person that they're uncomfortable with. And as we saw in the first video, that might be as simple as putting yourself in between the two people and just kind of acting as a human shield, depending on where you are, where you can do that and then engage that person in conversation. If you're going to speak to the harasser, something simple, such as, hey, she looks uncomfortable. Leave her alone. Or going up directly to the victim and asking them, is this person making you uncomfortable? Do you need some help? As the video pointed out, you can name the issue that's going on. Hey, listen, guy, that is harassment. Or by simply saying, that's uncalled for, what you're doing. I think you should stop. I think you need to leave. I think it's time for you to leave. I have seen people before, and I think this works only when you are someone who's very comfortable defending yourself. Usually it's a larger guy who speaks to the abuser harasser directly and is kind of like, hey dude, calm down. If it's a heated conversation, maybe let's take a walk, or, why don't you have a seat? And tries directing the harasser kind of off into a different area. And hopefully at the same time, there's also somebody who's able to come up to the victim and bring them away from that situation as well. So in a nutshell, those are the 5 Ds. I have one other video that I would like to play for you, and it has to do, this is a bunch of college students, and they're talking about situations that they found themselves in, ways that they have been able to successfully be an upstander or active bystander, and how that went. These are all successful situations. It's a little bit longer of a video because there are a lot of different people who are speaking, but I think it's really important because you get to hear situation by situation. What happened? What words did they use? Why did they decide to intervene in that situation? So I do want to play that for you now. If I can find my percent. Here we go.
I'm at a party, and it's nearing the end around 1 a.m. A girl and
Let me put that back to normal. Now you guys not listen to it at 2 times speed.
I'm at a party, and it's nearing the end around 1 a.m. A girl and a boy were leaving, and I went up and talked to them, and I got to the point where I suggested that I found out later was that the girl was very scared and she didn't know what to do in that situation.
It happened on a bus, in the back of the bus, and there was 3 people, and it started when I noticed a very uncomfortable gaze on myself by this man. His attention, I think, quickly turned from me to the other person. And what was extremely troubling about that was the third person, the girl. She was like 12, 13 at most. He got up from his seat and moved and sat next to her. And immediately her body language was one of like, oh my God, I'm in a situation and I don't know what to do. One of shutting yourself off, but it goes to like crossing your legs and crossing your arms and like kind of scooching aside. So I got up and I was like, oh my God, hi, Catherine. I don't know if her name was Catherine. so good to see you. I just, I was just talking to your sister. And she was like, yeah, right, okay. And then we just had this conversation, and the guy looked really annoyed, like extremely annoyed, very visibly like frowning at me. And I think he caught on to the fact that this was some giant lie, but it didn't matter.
I was heading back home after a film with a friend, and we just parted ways, and I saw this kind of scrawny-looking guy just walking behind this woman, and she was clearly really uncomfortable. I just thought if she was with a friend, she might feel safer. Ran up to her, almost pretended to be someone she knew. We walked in the other direction, and he didn't seem to follow us. So I guess it worked.
I played a lot of sports, and I've been a part of a lot of locker rooms, and there is certain things that are said in a locker room that are offensive or disrespectful. It's happened everywhere I've been, and you sort of feel uncomfortable when it's happening, and you don't always want to intervene. It's a tough thing to do. What I've noticed though is just refusing to participate in what is going on, or if you were asked to like sort of weigh in on what is being talked about, just show your disapproval. I notice all it takes is one person to really step up and show, hey, that's not what we're about, or that's not what I'm about, and other people can join in and also intervene.
When my team goes to the bar, often guys will come up when we're dancing and they'll start getting in behind you, trying to start grinding up on you. And we're pretty good that when we see that, we'll go in and grab the girl and be like, oh, there you are, like, want to go get a drink? Or you'll pretend to be really drunk and like stumble up to her, like bump him out of the way accidentally and start like shimmying. And I find if you dance with very loud arm movements, they tend to not come too close to you. They don't creep up behind you when you're making very large movements.
In about September, we host a lot of open parties for the public. I noticed a male and a female that looked pretty drunk, but the male was being a little bit overbearing and trying to grind really hard on the girl, obviously on the dance floor, but the girl looked noticeably uncomfortable. I went up to the guy, introduced myself, said, hey, how's it going? How's your night going? And just kind of had this like small talk chat that wasn't really important, but just gave the female enough time to come to her senses and just leave that situation and disappear into the dance floor, into find her friends most likely.
So about a year ago, I went to a concert that was downtown, and on the way back, I heard a girl screaming, please help me, don't touch me. And one of my friends told the person that was backing her into a corner to leave her alone, and this person turned around, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. Like, my heart was racing, and eventually he left her alone. He walked away, and we just started asking questions, making sure that she was okay, and whether she wanted help or someone to talk to, or if she wanted us to walk with her to like the nearest SkyTrain station. It's really important to say something if you do see something like that happening.
It doesn't have to be like an overt or confrontational interaction. You don't need to be verbally addressing the other person. They can be subtle movements, the way you angle your body, cutting someone off.
You can confront, but doing so in a way where it's really lighthearted and you don't really have to be a direct confrontational person.
I think there's lots of little telltale signs that you can give people that say, this is not okay, I don't agree with that, without being confrontational or putting yourself in a position where you feel that you're unsafe.
I want to like tell people it's fine if it's awkward. It's fine if your lie, like in that situation, clearly the third party, the perpetrator, knew that it was a lie because it was very obvious. I had sat there the whole time and I hadn't said anything. And all of a sudden I remembered that this girl's name was Catherine. Of course, this was a giant lie. But it doesn't matter because things were awkward anyways. And the other outcome could be much, much more harmful.
I think it's really important to make space for folks who might need an out, might need someone who's nearby to just ask for a moment if everything's okay, because I think it's easy to avoid doing that when we don't want to intervene for fear of some sort of repercussion.
You do feel in your heart in situations what's right and what's wrong. And a lot of times I will admit that I haven't done the right thing as far as stepping in and intervening. But going forward, the more that you do
step in those situations where you do feel something's wrong that's going on. That's what's going to eventually end, violence against women and make respect for women more commonplace.
It keeps muting me. I have no idea why. So let me say again, thanks, Janet. I was just thanking you for being here and wishing you a good day. So appreciate it. I have no idea what's going on with the muting thing today. It's just been alive, right? We don't have a ton of people here today, but what did you think about these videos that I interjected? I know sometimes I have some media that I can share with you, and other times it's just me up here talking, but I thought hearing from other people and hearing different situations might really help, especially as we look at and as we think about situations that we've been in before and that we've seen before. And one of the things that was mentioned was the man who said, I hear a lot of inappropriate things in the locker room. And I wanted to be able to take this bystander intervention a little bit further, a step further, in that it's not only just the situations where someone's behavior may be inappropriate, and it's not necessarily where it's a stranger. This could be a situation where it's your friend, your family, your coworker. If somebody is saying something about another person and you feel that it's wrong, you get that gut feeling. And again, this goes back to everyone's individual morality, and it's not going to be the same from person to person. But if you hear jokes about SA, if you hear victim blaming, if you hear someone bragging about how easy someone was because they were so drunk, or a worse situation that they're bragging about or bringing up, these are times that you step in and you say, hey, that's not okay. What you did was not okay, or what your friend did was not okay. And you repeating it in a way that is seeming that you're for it is not okay. And this is where we need to educate people. If they're making SA jokes, if they're victim blaming, I bought her dinner and I bought her drinks and she was dressed all sexy. And then she rejected me, when I tried to come in at night. I can't believe she did that to me. I can't believe she led me on like that. These are opportunities for us to be able to educate people. And it may fall on deaf ears. That is a distinct possibility. But maybe it'll make a dent. Maybe it will fall on his deaf ears, but maybe somebody else who's there, who's listening, maybe it'll click with them. And the next time a situation comes up or somebody says something that's inappropriate, they're willing to step forward because they're like, hey, I need to be able to recognize this and to try and stop it in its tracks. And again, this sort of thing can go for any type of inappropriate behavior. I'm just focusing on domestic violence, physical violence, violence towards, women, violence towards men, depending on the situation, right? Any sexual harassment type situation, regardless if it's male, female, female on male, doesn't matter. But if you see, a trans person being put down because of who they are, if you see someone being bullied, someone makes an overt racist statement towards somebody, and again, you have to assess the situation in general. I'm just naming a whole bunch of different things, right? You may not feel comfortable stepping in certain of those situations. Or for you and your own personal morality, you may say A, B, D, E, yes, but C, no, that's not a situation that I would step in. That was totally fine. And so you have to judge. I hate it when there has been a situation and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I feel so much more equipped by listening to this. I don't like confrontation. So to be able to interject myself into a situation where I can use distraction, lying about being the person's friend just to be able to give them an out, anything, right? To me, it's like that opens up a whole world for me. Now, doing what I do, if I hear victim blaming, if I hear people bragging about situations that really seem to be sexual assault, I don't have a problem speaking up to that person. I really don't. That's me. And that's what I'm comfortable with. There's other ways of being an upstander as well, beyond what we've already been talking about. If you hear misinformation being given, I couldn't come up with a lot of examples, but I have heard things like, yeah, it's her job to have dinner on the table when I get home, and it wasn't. And, I got so mad, or I don't know, people talking about sexual assault in a way that a situation is okay when it's obviously not. I've heard people speaking about sexual harassment and what is and what isn't sexual harassment. And there's been a point or two where they've been, to me, obviously wrong about that. I will interject myself into their conversation to correct them. I have done it with trauma victims. Let me clarify. So I will often hear police officers or lawyers speaking about how the victim didn't act like a victim. And I find myself needing to educate them a little bit about trauma effects and what happens when you're in a traumatic event. And it depends on the situation of what they're talking about. And I will get clarification first. Say, why don't you think they're acting like a victim? What did they do that gave you that indication? And still oftentimes than not, I'm still educating them about the effects of trauma and why what they did is still very consistent with someone being a victim. Now, is that to say they were or they weren't a victim? No, I'm not in a position to make that call. But what I'm in a position to do is to at least educate a little bit and to say, hey, did you consider? Did you know that? And 9 times out of 10, no, they didn't. They weren't thinking about it that way. So if I can give anybody just a little bit more information so that maybe they'll look at a situation differently next time, I count it as a win. One of the other ways that you can be an active bystander is by training people for, I call it more being an upstander, training people to look at situations just like I'm doing, whether it's in your religious organization, whether it's in a community group, whether it's at college, if that's where you are, whatever, just your friend group, just by assisting in getting the knowledge out there. Also, if you're looking at policies or procedures, whether they happen to be at an organization that you're part of or your workplace, or hey, Tommy, how you doing? Hope your afternoon's going well. Whatever group that you're part of, if there are guidelines, if there are policies, if there are procedures that you see are either incorrect or they need some tweaking, they're not looking in the right direction, that's a chance for you to stand up and say, hey, I think this policy needs to be looked at, or this procedure needs to potentially be rewritten. And so that's a way of helping to guide the conversation. Yep, this is deciding what to say next. So I want to turn the conversation to you guys, because you've been quite quiet in regards to this topic. I thought you guys might have a little bit more to say. Do you find yourself seeing these situations at all? Do you find yourself wanting to intervene but don't know what to say? Have there been times where you've intervened successfully? Has there been a situation where you saw someone intervene that didn't go so well, that maybe has made you more hesitant to intervene yourself? Amanda says, I normally intervene if there is a situation. And like we saw, there are so many ways of intervening. It doesn't need, sorry, cattail. Tigger has decided that he needs to join us because it's getting towards feeding time, so he's reminding me of that. There are so many ways to do that, to try and de-escalate a situation, whether it's injecting humor, whether it's just, idle chit-chat, distraction. There have been times where, I've kind of made a fool of myself. I've dropped things and, right in front of the person and be like, oh, sorry, I've got to get this. And something's like, oh, okay, can you grab that for me? And it just totally disrupts whatever was going on. And it gives me a half of a second also to say to that person, hey, are you okay? And if they say yes, and they're not indicating they want my help, I can't force my help on them. But at least I have made an effort. And I have tried to give that person an out. They may not always accept. Depends on the situation that they're in. Do they know this person? It maybe it's their cousin and it's just part and parcel of who this person is. And they're like, yeah, whatever. So they don't like it. They're uncomfortable with it, but there's not much they can do about it. And they're not willing to have, anyone step in between. So again, you've got to assess the situation, see if it's something that you can interject safely into. And if you do decide that you are going to interject because this is a situation you feel morally obligated to do so, then you need to decide how. What is the safest way that you can interject in this situation? Can you get somebody else to help you interject in the situation if you don't feel comfortable enough yourself? I'm going to go back to the beginning when I talked about the bystander effect and how the more people you have, the less likely it is that someone's going to help an individual. And then I said the converse is true. See, if at least one person tries to help another, the chances of additional people coming to that person's aid is increased. It's called the helper effect. That one person just to break the seal on that bottle, to cut that invisible rope, and it just opens the gates for everybody else to be able to come forward. There is safety in numbers. There's safety in numbers in terms of being anonymous and not taking responsibility for what is going on. There's also safety in numbers of being able to help. So challenge yourself. Next time you see something, can you be that upstander? Is there something that you can do or say to help the person who's being harassed or abused, verbally abused? They're being physically abused. It's a riskier situation, and it just depends. Is it something that you can interject yourself into safely? And that really is that's key, because we certainly don't want you getting injured as well. So I want to know, put a comment in the chat. Is there a favorite phrase that you like to use if you're going to interject with somebody? Do you pretend to be that friend? Do you not feel confident enough to interject? Tell me about your bystander intervention experience. I'm very interested to know. So I'd love for you to leave a comment after the show today, or if you're listening on replay, you can leave a comment when you're done. Let me know about your experiences. I know that there's been times that I've regretted not saying anything. And I feel more equipped now to be able to do so. And I hope that you do as well. Please, if you haven't, if you can hit that like button, it's really important, really helps the algorithm, as does those comments. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Why not? And share the content out. If you know somebody who you think might benefit from hearing the message that I had to say today, please share the video with as many people as you want, on as many platforms as you would like. Let me go to the chat here real hard. Real hard. I was just reading your comment, Jimena. You had friends stay quiet while your ex was screaming at you, humiliating you, and they did nothing. Yeah. You know, sometimes we think that because it's somebody's partner, if they're not saying anything, then you shouldn't say anything. That's totally not true. I think that you should say something. Now, whether you say something directly to that person and say, hey, cut it out, that's not okay. Or whether you go up to your friend and just start chit-chatting with her and totally ignoring, what the abuser is saying, just disrupting the situation, that can work as well. I have known people to say that they would make the situation worse. Say that they're in Jimena's situation, that if one of the friends had gone up to her ex and said, hey, cut it out, that's not cool, that's not okay, that would actually make the situation worse for that victim at home. And so I am keenly aware of that. So when it seems like it's a domestic situation, I am a little shyer to use direct confrontation. But I certainly am happy to distract the abuser's attention away from his intent and what disrupting the conversation somehow, whether that's making a fool out of myself or bumping into somebody. I'd much more bump into the victim and kind of bump them out of the way and get them out of the conversation, or at least disrupt the conversation for a little bit. So you do need to be attuned to those types of things. I certainly don't ever want to make a situation worse. But I definitely don't want to leave somebody in a situation where I could have helped. So there's no right or wrong answers in a lot of these situations, in anything anybody says, because we weren't there. We don't know all the players. Again, you've got to use that internal compass. What's it telling you to do? Is it telling you that this is not an okay situation? That this is something that you do need to do something about? If you see something, say something. Most of the time. Again, you're going to have to be the judge of that. Krista, you share yours in the comments? That would be great. Really appreciate that. All right, guys. Well, that is what I had for today's presentation. It was a general overview and was very much focused on sexual assault, domestic violence types of situations, partner issues. There's a lot of applicability to any other types of situations you may come across that you feel are not okay. So use your judgment, assess the situation. One of the biggest points that hit me was before I can even assess the situation, I need to see it, which means I need to be paying attention to my surroundings. And as a single woman, I need to be doing that anyway when I'm out and about. Probably more than I actually do. I get wrapped in my head, get going with what I'm doing, and, you know, I'm not really looking around and paying attention to the other people. But we need to. So it's part of being in a community. That's part of helping each other. We have to notice the problem first. So I encourage you, next time you're out, open your eyes. Take a look around. I'm not saying go out with the intention of looking for a situation that you can intervene in. But keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to play our outro that was put together by our wonderful Mena. Yes, it's a little longer, but I love the song. So I hope that you enjoy it as well. Again, please hit that like button on the way out if you haven't already. Subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell for all for notifications, because if you subscribe and you don't hit that bell, it's automatically going to go to personalized. And I don't have any personalized settings, so it doesn't make any difference. All right, guys. Remember, you are worthy. You are valuable. And you are loved for who you are, just the way you are. Mwah. Hugs and love from me. Have a great weekend. We see you next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Surviving together, never alone.
Through the fire, through the rain, we have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again, stronger now, we break the chain, surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see